which means like having a stick in your hand, just controlling the industries, or like say totally 100% regulated thing on controlling the whatever say implications the government decides. But they were first wave policies, also called direct regulation on whatever aspects, like maybe on the carbon dioxide emission, methane emission, whatever it may be. If the government or the government in the sense, I'm talking about the entire countries around the world, which try to regulate, but they have failed. Okay, so what is the alternative to this is the market mechanism. Okay, like in the market mechanism, we have two policies, two mechanisms. One is cap and trade, which means, for example, industry is emitting 100 tons of carbon dioxide. You say, hey, you should not be emitting 100 tons. The cap is 80 tons. Okay, you are allowed to emit only to the extent of 80 tons of carbon dioxide. And if you wanted to compensate for the rest 20 tons of carbon dioxide, or you have to use other mechanisms of offsetting based on.
Excuse me, sir, it is not audible.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So other mechanism is taxes. Say, for example, a person wanted to start A wanted to start a 100-ton emitting industry. It can be taxed at 10%, for example. Another B person is wanted to start 200-ton emitting industry, say 20% taxation for that matter. So two viable alternatives: either allow them to produce and at the same time tax, or fix them a target or a quota, give them some quota so that they would be able to restrict that emissions to a particular level. So in these two mechanisms, I'm not going to talk about taxing mechanisms, because even I am not for a tax-based system. My support, my approach is only for a market-based mechanism, particularly with frustration on command and control policies. Regulation is not strict regulation is not going to work, and it has failed literally. Okay. And these command and control policies are not efficient, and economists apply lessons for the marketplace for environment policies. The derivatives market, the carbon credit futures market are all outcome of economics. Financial persons who are experts in the financial services sector, they came out with a market model. Okay. So this market model is the mechanism which we are trying to encourage, observe, and trying to emulate in India to our country for the matter. Okay. So when these are the issues in this related to climate change, it cannot prolong for a long time. No, the global countries, the global community started observing the damages, and they jumped into action. Because several studies have proved that there is a serious concern because of climate change on two aspects. One is first the atmospheric components, namely the Earth carbon absorbing capacity. It's finite. Okay, it is not flexible. There is a amount of carbon that could be absorbed by the Earth, which is getting depleted, and that growth of greenhouse gas emission, even at their present level, pose a threat to humankind. And secondly, it has been established that per capita greenhouse gas emission is strongly correlated with the economic prosperity. That is why I said we need to move back to the pre-industrialization level. We talk about economic prosperity, but we should also understand that whenever we talk about economic prosperity, we also should understand, or we imagine that we are talking about destruction. It's not economic prosperity, it is economic destruction. It is not development, but it is destruction. Further, it is recognized that without increasing, at the same time, can we close down all the industries emitting greenhouse gases? Is it possible in the present day modern economy? No. So further, it is recognized that without increase in greenhouse gases, yes, there is a need for greenhouse gases, increasing greenhouse gases emission or access to appropriate alternative technology options. Developing countries would not be able to pursue their socio-economic goals, particularly in the case of India. If the developing countries, developed countries for the matter, if there are several discussions going on, and I'm going to tell you about the developments and what is happening in the contemporary scenario. What happens is that if they do that, it will create a serious blow on the developing countries' economy, particularly in the case of India. So the global community came together, first it was intergovernmental panel on climate change, followed by which gave birth to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And then came the Conference of Parties. From 1 to 26. 25 Conference of Parties who got over, floated by the UNFCCC, and the next one is in the month of December 2021. Okay, that's what I'm going to insist. I'm going to tell what is going to happen, and which gave birth to Kyoto Protocol, and later came Paris Agreement, which are all global attempts to find a solution for mitigating climate change. Particularly, as I said in the introduction, I'll be concentrating more on Kyoto Protocol, which gave birth to Clean Development Mechanism. And later, I'll be touching upon, I'll be telling you the details about the Clean Development Mechanism, which gave birth to the carbon credits. So you could understand the flow in which it has happened. Later, I'll be touching upon the Paris Agreement. Initially, our discussion will be focused on the Kyoto Protocol. What is Kyoto Protocol? All this intergovernmental panel on climate change, it started its activities from 1990, and in 1992 the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was created. 1997 Kyoto Protocol was ratified, and in 2015 Paris Climate Treaty, which we call Paris Agreement, okay, it got signed in 2016. Okay, this is the scenario which I'm going to cover now. The Kyoto Protocol, in full, it is called the Kyoto Protocol to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Is an international treaty. Whenever I use the word international treaty, you should understand that it is legally binding treaty. There are thousands and thousands of treaties between, the bilateral treaties or multilateral treaties between nations. But this treaty is for by the United Nations itself, which is an international body, which has the international sanctity, which has to be sincerely adopted and followed by spirit by all nations which are all signatories to this treaty. This Kyoto Protocol, named of the Japanese city Kyoto, which was adopted in December 1997 in the third conference of the parties, COP. The protocol, which is in force since 2005, requires developed countries. This Kyoto Protocol created a difference between, the developed nations and the developing nations. Okay, which is called as Annex 1 countries. Okay, Annex 1 countries means a list of developed nations which were all parties to the Kyoto Protocol. And they segregated, which are all developed nations and other nations, which is considered to be the developing nations for that matter. And what is their agenda? So emissions to individual are resulting in an average 5.2% reduction in greenhouse gases, which is decided in the Kyoto Protocol 1997, okay, to 5.2% reduction in the greenhouse emission from their 1990 emission levels. This 1990 is a threshold point, cutoff year, because this industrialization, which we massive industrialization, aggressive industrialization, which we are talking about, they have identified, they have understood that to have a break from the year 1990 we have to move back to 1990 levels. This protocol, for the first time in the evolving climate change regime, provided the legally binding emission commitments by Annex 1 parties. I'm going to watch all the Annex 1 parties, and they were talking about greenhouse gases. Which are all the greenhouse gases which we discussed earlier? The carbon dioxide, the nitrous oxide, the methane, hydrofluorocarbons. And this is the list of Annex 1 countries, starting from Australia, Austria, Belarus, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, European Union, Finland, France, Germany was selling from say close to 15 euros to 20, even 20, 22, 23 euros some point of time. So industries which are setting up a clean development mechanism projects will be earning like say thousands and thousands of CERs, which means like huge earnings for these industries. And 2% of that will go to the United Nations body. That 2% money like will be pulled in for and utilized for clean development mechanism activities, sustainable development mechanism activities, climate change mitigation activities throughout the world. So that is the another benefit. Now we will go to the dual objective of clean development mechanism. The first objective is to help developed countries fulfill their commitments. So because of this mechanism, somewhere in the world industries are created. Yeah, I mean, non-emitting industries are created, non-emitting mechanisms are created. CERs, based on which CERs are there, but the actual beneficiaries are the developed nations. The second objective is assist developing countries to achieve sustainable development. So, and at the same time, this particular process also helps improvement in the livelihood of communities through the creation of employment or increased economic activity in underdeveloped and developing nations, which is a reality. Even in India, for that matter. So now you have understood that there is a mechanism which produces CERs. Now we will look into slowly move into the market for it. Okay. The concept of carbon credit. Carbon credit is the certified emission reduction. That certificate which I showed you, 1 ton of carbon reduction is equal to 1 CER. That is called as carbon credits. Came into existence as a result of increasing awareness between, awareness throughout the world. And the mechanism was formalized in the Kyoto Protocol, as I showed you, and it's an international agreement signed by 170 countries. Okay, usually minus USA, because there was a lot of confusions. They were not initially agreeing, but many countries, 170 countries agreed, and the actual mechanism for implementing clean development, the actual, the process of implementing clean development mechanism, though it was originally agreed in Kyoto Protocol, it came out as Marrakesh Accords in Morocco. Marrakesh is it's a third category city, or the third largest city in Morocco, where again that foreign ministers of met, and they came out with the mechanism for trading in carbon credits. So it's a global scheme aimed at reducing the amount of greenhouse gases, and this carbon credit generated by enterprises in the developed world. For each 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide emission avoided, the entity can get 1 CER certificate. These certificates can be exchanged between businesses, which means buying and selling of these certificates in international markets at the prevailing market. These international markets should be, once it is produced, if you have a carbon emission reduction certificate, it is available. I said it's a share certificate, which can be traded, bought and sold in the international market, mostly bought by the industries in the developed nations, because they have the commitment. It can be sold either immediately or through the futures market. Whether it is a spot market immediately selling, we call it a spot market, or it can be sold in the futures market. Okay, it also has a forward market. Even now it has a forward market, it has a futures market and a spot market. Okay, maybe for it's all big jargons which is used in commercial jargons, but anyhow, I'll put it very simply. It can be sold immediately or sometime in the future. But where it in a market, recognized market. Okay, so purchased by a company, so it can be emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide. So a company which wanted to emit should buy CERs, and the scheme allows developing countries to sell the carbon whose emissions they have avoided by installing less polluting equipments in industries, switching to renewable energy, and protecting or creating new forest, for that matter. So who is buying that? Mostly it is richer countries, or industries in the richest countries can buy the carbon credits. And such entities in the rich countries find it cheaper to buy offsetting credit certificates rather than reducing their emission. That's why I initially told you, there will be an X industry in America which is emitting 100 tons. Suddenly, if you wanted to tell them to reduce it by 50 tons, it's not going to happen. Rather, they prefer to compensate it by buying 50 CERs from India, and they will show to their own government, US government and United Nations, yes, we are emitting. You asked us to control. Okay, you also gave us a facility to compensate it, offset it with buying CRs. We did it. That's it. This is the market. This is the market-based model. Just imagine when this market model is not there, when this mechanism is not there, when there is a financial aspect. That is why we call this CERs and carbon credits as environmental financial products, environmental financial instruments, environmental financial market. So we are trying to find a financial solution, market-based solution for the climate change, mitigating climate change in one form or other. So mostly the benefit goes to the emitting industries in the rich countries like USA, UK, Canada, Australia, etc. And this is authenticated. The trade is carried out under an UN mandated high level of authentication is there, which means approval mechanism is there by an UN International Convention on Climate Change, which is nothing else but the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So this market, in whichever name it is called, whether it is carbon market or carbon futures market, emissions market, emission certified emission reductions market, whatever it may be, the price is mostly quoted in euro because even now, for that matter, even in India when it was traded, later I will come to Indian market, but originally in Europe, it started in Europe, and like one of the strongest market in the world, entire world, is the European Climate Exchange. Mostly either it is mostly traded in the European Climate Change or Exchange, or it is traded in the European Energy Exchange. Okay, these are very popular markets there. So it is quoted in euro per ton of carbon dioxide. So the price is quoted in euro and quoted as standard multiples of carbon dioxide emission. It will be say, let's say 100 tons of carbon dioxide emission, CRs, 200 tons, something like that, depending upon the global warming, reducing the global warming potential. The climate exchanges, they are called climate exchanges, whichever exchange which also deals with, these are all, we call it commodity exchanges basically. Participants try to understand that when it is carbon dioxide, at that extent it is chemistry. Okay, when it becomes certified emission reduction, it is a commerce concept. It is a commercial concept. It comes to our own domain, commerce domain. Okay, so we call it exchanges, market, etc. So climate exchange have been established to provide a spot market, futures market, options market, basically for what is the market where we bargain, whatever market, some price is set, we could able to identify what is the exact price for a particular product at a particular point of time, depending upon the demand and supply forces. So many companies now engage in emission abatements, offsetting and sequestration programs. From carbon market, spot market, when you talk about carbon futures market, I mean carbon credit futures market, carbon credit futures, when you use the word carbon credit futures market, it becomes a derivatives market. It comes under the commodity. Carbon credit is a commodity. Certified emission reduction is a commodity. And commission, because it is considered as a commodity and it is traded in the recognized exchanges, markets, and when you trade for the future, listed in this exchanges for trading in the future market, it becomes carbon credit futures and it is classified as carbon derivatives or carbon credit derivatives. So at present, Nord Pool, European Climate Exchange, European Energy Exchange, New York Mercantile Exchange, Green Exchange, and Power Next are the exchanges which are dealing with this climate emission products, which means CERs. So, how buying carbon credit can emit emissions? Because there is a monetary value for the cost of polluting. Initially, in the first slide, I told you no one bothers about emitting. Now, the market model has created a botheration for if you emit, you have to buy CERs. CERs not free of cost, it has a value. Say, for example, one CER is equal to 20 euro for that matter. Thousands and thousands of CERs, buying CERs to compensate, to offset your emissions, it's going to cost you too much. So what happens is that over a period of time, definitely, if I'm the general manager, I'll switch off in UK, I'll switch off my lights, switch off the AC, my switch off and try to commit my, for example, I'm telling you. Okay. So it has brought in a monetary value for the cost of polluting the air. And there is the internal cost of doing business. And originally it was not there. Now you can find the buying and selling of CERs, finding a place in the balance sheet of these companies which are emitting greenhouse gases. and in the balance sheet, in the asset and liability. For remaining 22,000 tons, okay, either they can take steps to reduce themselves. That is not going to be possible in that, considering the growth of that economy, the scale of the business in UK, in that one business of that one industry. They will rather try to, instead it may choose to buy carbon credits on the open market, maybe which is produced in any of the developing country. So initially there was a very good response for this mechanism in India. It was considered as a flagship program addressing the climate change mitigation in India. There was a very good opportunity. Industries in India, businessmen in India, even government as such felt that there's a very good opportunity. It's a very good opportunity for developing countries like India. And the CDM thrived and grew to proportions unparalleled. Number of projects has come in a short period of 2 years. 500 projects more were submitted from India to the UNFCCC for registering, for considering, for approval. Okay, so in the last decade, I mean the last year, more than 70,000 projects at UNFCCC from through all over the world went for approval. Among this, 7,000 projects, most of the projects were from India, and India emerged as a serious player in the international carbon market. And because the market is evolving, you all know, when the market is evolving, for example, a liquor shop is they established, opened there, very close to liquor shop, a small snacks shop will be automatically come up. There will be a few snack seller will be, like, it doesn't mean that the liquor shop owner will start, that doesn't mean so. People will try to catch up the opportunities. So in India back, because the people saw the growth in carbon credit market, originators, developers, trader in carbon credits, a lot of newer and newer player came, and India played a significant role in supporting greenhouse gas emission projects. And we also created in 2003, we understanding the importance of CDM mechanism. India created a National Clean Development Mechanism Authority, NCDMA, in December 2003, and it got the host approval from the UNFCCC. So, in continuation of the good response in India, India has contributed about 13% of the total CERs issued by the United Nations UNFCCC. The registered projects represent an investment of over 1.6 trillion Indian rupees and have generated over 170 million CERs. 170 million CERs, imagine. Multiplied by, for example, an average 20 euros market value. Massive revenue for companies which have established sustainable, renewable, newer projects in India, which means that it's an additional revenue. Participants, you have to understand, all these are additional CERs or additional revenue for the companies located in India, apart from their original business. This proactive approach, there was a proactive approach from Government of India, good support. Ministry of Environment and Forest, which is involved, which is mostly connected with this CDM mechanism. High level of activity exhibited by Indian industry, private sector, government, government agencies. There was a clear coordination support. Newer and newer projects came up. With this, India has taken second spot in the world next to China, and followed by Brazil, Mexico, and South Korea. So the renewable energy projects dominated in terms of number of registered CDM projects in India. What is the interest towards Indian credits? So I said, so now you could understand that all the developing countries will be looking at the revenue model, looking at the importance of creating a sustainable energy project, renewable energy product, non-emitting industry in that country. Definitely all developing countries started showing interest. Okay, there should be some difference between CER in India and a CER in another country. I'm comparing CER with Afghanistan for that matter, because see, mostly what happens, entities would like to, entities means in annexure one country, America, would be interested to deal with the trustworthy counterparties or with the developers or sellers in a country that is dynamic in expediting the approval of these projects and have a very good monitoring mechanism. For example, India. So naturally, CERs in India will have a good rate compared to the CRs in CDM projects in India will be shown some sort of extra interest by annexure own countries. When some, for example, compared with the project in Afghanistan, is not going to set a lot of comparison to the baseline price of the one in India. So there will be a lot of difference in terms of project. Viewing the project, observing the project, and the pricing the CERs from between India and Afghanistan for that matter. Why Kyoto Protocol preferred a market-based model? Kyoto Protocol, what is Kyoto Protocol? In Kyoto, it is a conference of parties, which means a representative for individual nations. They met and they were discussing about climate change, mitigating climate change. In that, why should they prefer a market-based model? Because markets provide a lot of incentives for industries. Whatever it may be, it is a businessman, it is the high net worth individuals, it is the industry which is buying technology, like say, they are the emitters and only they have to find a solution. Who are they? They are the market players, the players in the market. So giving the responsibility to them to find a solution. That is why in the Kyoto Protocol, market-based model was accepted under CDM. The role of markets as a solution on climate change was accepted, and there was an increased interaction with the public policy agenda, encourages business community, because emitters are mostly businesses, and the business community can offer new choices, innovate and apply knowledge and technology. Once they feel that it is too much of costly for them to buy CERs, naturally they will try to move out to alternative energy sources, less emitting sources. That is a visible success which we are seeing. Why should, like say, Biden talks about solar projects? Why Obama was talking for a long time, about 8 years, he was talking, pushing up for solar projects, which which was reversed by Trump administration. So which means that those who understood the importance of climate change were trying to, impose or create newer and newer regulations in their respective country. Okay, so which means in the country for the businesses. So markets are the key to establishing corporate social responsibility, risk mitigation, and they are the persons who can bring in visible change in emission reductions. So what drives, I said there is a spot market where you can immediately buy and sell CERs, and the futures market, which is a derivatives market, which market is functioning for two important responsibilities. One is price discovery, discovering a price for a value of a carbon reduction certificate after 1 month, after 6 months, after 12 months, etc. Okay, so that is the futures market. What will be the price of CER after 6 months? What will the price of CER after 12 months, 8 months, etc.? It's the futures market. Very simple, very simply I'm telling that. Very, to a very diluted way I'm telling. Okay. And the other is risk mitigation. So for price discovery and risk mitigation, this for spot and futures market are there for in the exchanges, in the recognized exchanges globally, because CER is considered considered as a commodity. Commodity like what? Like cotton, like soybean, like crude oil, like gold. So these CERs are also considered as a commodity, and the price of this is depending upon the need of the commodity. Okay, you all know what is the price of crude oil now. It is declining because of COVID implication throughout the world, except India. Now, once we are paying more for petrol and diesel, but however, the international price is coming down. After COVID, naturally, in the international markets, crude oil prices will go up. You should be able to understand that the market determines the price. It's the market determines the dividend. So the demand and supply for a particular commodity determines the price, which is also applicable for CERs, whether it is spot market or futures market. So, for example, what is the need for the commodity in Europe? Because in Europe, everyone is talking about high prices of allowances market. Companies need allowances. If they don't, they have to buy credits and pay fine. So it is basically a question of demand and supply. For example, what companies in Europe do is to reduce their emission internally. For example, switching off the lights when they go home, for instance. For example, if they have two allowances to emit 3, for example, they are like say they are 3 tons of greenhouse gases, and the government is accepting for like say to emit 2 tons. 1 ton is remaining, for which they try to reduce that 1 ton, or they cannot meet. They have to buy from the market. So the value of the credit is not dependent upon intrinsic value, but it is dependent upon the demand and supply of the commodity. In our case, the commodity is carbon derivatives, carbon credits, certified emission reduction certificate, that certificate which I showed you. So the market price of CER is dependent upon weather patterns also. What is the weather pattern? Say, for example, majority of the entities requiring in the entire world, as I told you, even the price of CER is quoted in euro, which means exchange, etc., which are dealing with climate financial instruments. Before the emergence of these markets, like the prices were not very, like say, which was biased, which was not depending upon the actual forces of demand and supply. Whereas after the emergence of exchanges started playing a major role as a hub, acting as a hub for CERs, because many other players, like in any derivatives market, there are three major players, hedgers, speculators, and arbitrators. In this market, the speculators are actual hedgers or the buyers and sellers, and a lot of other who doesn't have actual need for CERs also jump into the market in the name of speculators, and they actual try to set in the real price based on demand and supply for carbon emission reduction certificates or the carbon credits for that matter. So when exchanges are there, a very clear mechanism emerges for price discovery and risk management in emission reduction instruments. So now I'm coming to what is the role in India. So Government of India, by a notification in 4th January 2008, allowed multi-commodity exchange CERs to be traded in India. And multi-commodity exchange is the first exchange to establish, to enter into an agreement with the Chicago Climate Exchange for dealing in it's called CCX mini-sized versions of European Climate Exchange carbon financial instruments, which is called ECX CFA, which can be traded in MCX. And the MCX has floated, initially it has floated 5 contracts. Light pink, dark pink. Some participant is blocked or she should be advised to mute. Okay. So these exchanges, this in the sense multi-commodity exchange in India started dealing with this ECX CFI with an MOU with the European Climate Exchange. And CCX in North America's first and the only multi-sector model for reducing and trading greenhouse gases emissions. This represented the first transparent linkage between Kyoto and Annexure 1 and Annexure 2 technology, which means the developed nations, okay, they had like say climate exchanges dealing with the climate financial instruments. For the first time in India, mostly in fact, in this part of the continent, not even China, first it was started in India, at multi-commodity exchange. They launched ECX CFA mini contracts so that a developed country and a developed exchange in a developed country and the exchange in a developing country came in under an MOU understanding to launch climate financial instrument products. So the introduction of CCX environmental financial product in Asia, it's a milestone development in Asia, particularly in India, and particularly by our own very famous multi-commodity exchange, which is very popular in crude oil, silver, bullion trading, and few agricultural commodities in India. So this contract, which is launched by multi-commodity exchange, is called ECX CFI Mini, which is nothing but the European Climate Exchange, Climate Financial Instrument Mini. Okay, it started trading in December 15, 2008. The lot size, now for example, it's 200 tons, which means 200 CERs. Okay, so if you wanted to buy, you cannot buy one CER. You have to buy and sell in a lot of 200 CERs. M6 is the first to trade in carbon credit futures listed in India. Initially, it was selling in between 13 to 15 euros. Later, it went on up to 20, 22 euros also. And the fate, it is zero also at some point of time. Okay, that's what is the discussion. Okay, so similarly, futures trading also started in another very famous agriculture commodity exchange in India, which is called the National Multi-Commodity Exchange, NCDEX. National Commodity Derivatives Exchange. It's called National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange. It's also started, and initially the very first day, the one it was it was selling for around 1,007 rupees per certified ECR. And you should also understand very interestingly, the price of CER traded in India was correlated with the price of crude oil. Okay, whenever there is an increase in the price of crude oil, which means there will be a correlation with the price of CER, because when the price of crude oil will go up, when there is huge demand for crude oil, which means a lot of heating process, a lot of requirements for fuel consumption. So whenever it is there, they definitely they wanted to bring down that, automatically the demand will spill over to the CR market, and CR prices will also go up. So there will be a co-movement with the crude oil price with the top carbon credit prices. Okay, so as crude oil and natural gas prices rising, many companies started using cheaper fuel such as coal. So what is your, when you move to from crude oil, which means petrol and diesel, to crude oil, coal, what will happen? If you move to emission reduction, which means all solar and wind power, definitely you will earn CR. But rather, CR, you will be moving to coal because of additional requirements, which will be ending up with higher emission, like say, of emitting of greenhouse gases. So the demand for CERs will go up. So in 2009, carbon credits worth approximately $5 billion were traded in India, contributed to 1 billion, 40,000, that's what I was telling, 40,000 crores of CERs were traded in 2009 alone. And India is amongst the global leaders, having already generated close to 300 million carbon credits. 140 million carbon credits are in the pipeline for sale, making it one of the largest beneficiaries in the carbon credit market. However, at this point of time, I wanted to tell you the trading is suspended now for one reason in India. Okay, I'll tell you what is the reason. So, the launch of MCX and NCDX brought in a major transformation in the way carbon credits, CERs, are sold in Indian markets. This is a small glimpse of contract specification for CER in India. That is from Multi Commodity Exchange. Lot size is for, I'm telling only, I'm not going to tell about NYMEX. NYMEX is New York Mercantile Exchange. ECX is European Credit Exchange. Forget about that. I'll tell you only about the specification about India. Lot size is 250 metric tons. Increments 250 CERs. Price quotation rupees. It is quoted in rupees. When it is quoted in rupees, you should also understand that the price reference, the reference price, baseline price is taken from the European market, because that is the market which sets the price for our carbon credits. Like the case of gold. Gold is consumed heavily in India. You all know that. But where is the reference price of gold comes from? It's from the overseas exchanges. Likewise, it is quoted in Indian rupees in India. Tick size, movement of for one sale another sale. If you want to increase or reduce the price, it will be 50 pice. Daily price limit 5%, initial margin 6%, expiry date 25th of the contract month. Initially, I told you the contracts were launched for the month of December and 2008 and January 2009. Okay, so the contracts will be expiring on 25th of December and 25th of January 2009 with the initial thing, and the market timings 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. and during Saturdays 10 a.m. So there is I told you the go movements. If you see the price of the MCX CFI, I mean the CCX CFI, which is traded in MCX, it has a lot of correlation with the value of natural gas traded in NYMEX, crude oil traded in NYMEX, electricity traded in Intercontinental Exchange, and coal traded in ICE. Okay, so you could see, if you closely watch that, the value of CER has a lot of 92.56% of correlation with that of natural gas and 93.52% of correlation with the crude oil. So when you compare with like say with other exchanges, correlation with other exchanges, correlation of CER prices with that of other exchanges, when it is with ECX 94.98%, Nord Pool it is 95%, CCX 96%. So of overall Indian contracts had a correlation with the climate control exchanges with closer to 96.36% level. This slide shows you how the flow goes up from like say the correlation of with the crude oil and M6 with the certificate emission reductions with that of crude oil. These are the exchanges which trades with climate control instruments, climate mitigation instruments, climate carbon emission instruments. So the future of crude oil market is at risk as of now, because the CR projects developed in India and also in emitting countries. That's a good question, which from their side. But we also have our own, our own genuineness in our own demand, because we have a pool of huge pool of CERs in our hand. We established a lot of projects. Good projects are performing very well. CERs were generated, and we have to sell that, because the mechanism generated in Kyoto Protocol came to end through the Paris Agreement, which moved from CDM to NDC. So, what is the progress with regard to other countries? For example, China. China, it said it will bring down 65% of its emissions, which is there today, by 2030. They said a lot, but even the President Xi Jinping made a surprise announcement in the UN General Assembly. They said, saying that China plans to achieve net zero emissions by 2060, but visibly in every 5 year, they have a they are with the fire plan, which we moved. India, we don't have a fire plan now, but they are continuing with that, at least in last March, which means like this month, 2 months before, doesn't spell out steps to reaching this goal. So in United States, they also committed for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. As per initially there was an agreement, and later you also, just now I was mentioning about the reversal during the Trump administration. But however, Biden came and he said that he will go ahead with the Paris Agreement. He will agree with Paris Agreement commitments, and yet US has not still submitted its renewed NDC commitments. European Union, yes, they have committed in 2015 to reduce CO2 emissions by at least 40% by 2030 compared to 1931. So you have to understand that two targets are there. One is 2030, 2 5-year plans, which may 5-year periods from 2020 to 2025 and 2025 to 2030. Okay, which means there is a commitment from each countries, commitment to the UNFCCC by each country. But the truth is that many countries, 70% of the countries, no, they are yet to give their commitments. India, we are the third largest polluter, and we are yet to submit we haven't submitted our NDC. We are waiting for that. That's what I'm going to tell you. Russia, Japan, the rest of the world, all put together, okay, we all put together, around 80 nations representing less than 30% of the emissions met the official deadline for NDC resubmissions, which means many nations, 70, which are responsible, 70% of the emissions are yet to give their commitment for the nationally determined commitments for bringing down the emission levels by, the initial target of 2030. So, what is the reasons why, there is a reversal from the CDM mechanism? Well, there are several reasons. One is India is only a India, as far as India is concerned, we are net producers of CERs. We are sellers of CERs. Okay, there is actually no buyers or less buyers of CER after 2012. Once the US started opposing, and many developed countries started opposing the CDM mechanism and the CER buying of CER mechanism by the developing nations, the interest started fading away slowly, and the demand for CER in the market has come down, and the carbon market produced for providing market-based mechanism, it has come down. And as far as India is concerned, they are considered only as the net sellers of CERs. And because of there are more of net sellers and less number of buyers, naturally you all know, when there are no buyers, market rate for CERs has come down, which was selling for around 22 euros, it has gradually came down to 4 euros, 3 euros, something like that, and there was the interest shown in the market has faded away slowly, and that's the reason for doing a clean down mechanism. Reason two, the statutes and the type of participation in the derivatives market. Okay, India had a very good market. I said MCX and NCD exploited the contracts. The climate financial and CFA contracts in India. But foreign players are not allowed to trade in the market. India produced a lot. We are ready to sell in the market. Who will buy? The developed countries should buy. But our regulation, which was earlier Forward Contracts Regulation Act, which was under the Forward Markets Commission, Government of India, in the statute itself, there is no provision for foreign players to trade in the Indian market. They cannot buy and sell Indian market. Then what is the use of having like a instrument in a multi-commodity exchange? So automatically the demand came down. So, and the other aspect is the inefficient market. If you want to have a good efficient market, you should have like a good role by hedgers, good role by speculators and other players in the market. But as far as Indian market is concerned, okay, the actual need for hedging in Indian markets failed. So naturally, for like say a lot of difficulties emerged in this market. One by one, like as I said, you foreign participants are not allowed. Price discovery was not happening in the market. People were not able to mitigate the risk in the Indian market using buying and selling in the Indian markets. The Indian markets, the volume that was traded in the CFI for Indian markets has come down gradually, gradually, like we call it the basis risk, high basis risk, and low hedging efficiency on the other hand. So another fourth reason is that, like say, there is no incentive for speculators. See, there is a role for speculators. Hedgers are people who have the physical interest to buy and sell. Speculators are people who jump in to make profit into the market. When there is no business actual liquidity in the market, buying and selling activity in the market, good to scope for making profit in the market. Why should a speculator, which is a profit only person, come jump into the market? So naturally, speculators also moved out of the market, did not show interest in the Indian carbon credit markets. So there are several other reasons are also for these contracts, and slowly what happened is that because of on one side huge pressure from the developed nations to do away with the Kyoto Protocol and the clean development mechanism, and the poor very less response for carbon derivative products, carbon instruments, climate financial instruments in Indian market, the market slowly declined and the contracts were suspended from NCDEX India and MCX India. So the fate of carbon credits, what will happen? So no trading, there is no trading in Indian markets. What will happen to the CERs produced by Indian companies? The fate was discussed in the COP25, which happened in Madrid, in Spain. In Spain, this issue, India placed this issue. We don't have a market. And we moved from Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement. Where will we sell our CERs? Our industries are pressing us, our businessmen are pressing us. How to deal with that? This was placed in Madrid Agreement. And the main agenda in the development of international market for carbon, the only aspect of Paris Agreement for which implementation of rules are yet to be framed. And the value of CER came down to zero. I said 23 euros to zero after COP met in Madrid. So from 2009, the value of CERs is zero because foreign entities were not showing interest to buy the carbon credits. So the fate of carbon credits with Indian companies is hanging in fire. This was expected that these credits would be bought by the developed countries without any disturbances. But a disturbance came in the form of Paris Agreement. And now the fate of CERs, which is there in Indian markets, is at stake. And many companies in between there is very success stories Indo Wind, Chennai-based wind energy company sold some around 15 CRs for $15. And they were Indian companies were earning to the extent of 45,000 crores in a year. Jindal Vijayanagar Steel, it has earned around $225 million by selling offsets. There are a number of very good, interesting examples. This is very few I'm telling about. And at that point of time, CER was telling about $25. After the end of this shine in the market for CER product, CER instruments, it was selling for 25 cents. The instrument which was selling for $25 came down to 25 cents. So cheap, just 1% value. It has lost 99% of its value. Whereas at the same time, the IMF said that the actual market value of the carbon the certified emission reductions in the international market should be selling for $75. The actual worth, they were telling that it was actual worth, but it was selling for 25 cents. In terms of Indian rupee, it was selling for which is supposed to be sell for 75 rupees, for example, for analogy, I'm telling, market it was selling for 25. Like it was selling for 25 rupees, it was selling for 25 price. That cheaper it went. But only one issue which is left, one of the important issue which is left unresolved is the fate of carbon credits. So countries like US, Canada, Australia, Russia, they are on one side. We like for us, it is Brazil, India, Korea. We are all in one group. We are fighting with them. So as expected, that Madrid, the odds were against the developing countries. Developing countries did not succeed in Madrid. Okay, so the hard-earned millions of CERs is still to be resolved. So the India's main goal is to bring the right to sell carbon credits it has earned. And talks in Madrid failed. However, we are looking for the other, like say, discussion COP25. I mean, COP26, which is going to happen. Okay, India is not alone in its demand. We are backed by Brazil, Japan, and Australia, who are also having good number of carbon credits. So many countries argued that carrying carbon is racked up the Kyoto area. They were not ready to agree. All those old stocks gone. We are no more eligible for trading. That is like say opinion of developed nations. Whereas we are having our own genuineness of placing our demand, like for carrying over of the carbon credits. But India said that it's an issue of trust, and the matter is still pending. And there are a lot of disagreements over the type of credits that is available, because as I said earlier, Western countries say that the carbon credits produced in India, particularly in India for that matter, a lot of corruption was there in between. There is no proper accounting, monitoring, surveillance, and surveillance mechanism to ensure whether they are really actually produced or not. And they were also telling that these companies were trying to take dual advantage, selling carbon credits, as well as they are trying to take double advantage at their own respective countries. So these are the issues which is to be resolved in COP26 Glasgow 2021, and India will once again try hard along with its friends. Okay, so I'm not going to the reasons, a lot of time. So by this time, you should be able to understand that there is a global markets for exchanges, successful markets for like European Climate Exchange, NYMEX, etc., which deals with carbon financial instruments. Whereas in India, which is a developing country, which was a signatory to the protocol, Kyoto Protocol, which has also ratified the Paris Agreement. Now the stake is with the carbon credits market. We are trying to resolve the issue in the international markets. Now coming to the present scenario, I'll take 15 more minutes. Kindly bear with me. There is no uniform CDM mechanism worldwide now. Every country has their own climate change mitigation targets. As per Kyoto Protocol, India earlier had a CDM mechanism. As per Paris Agreement, every country has their own climate control targets. So India started implementing projects like solar energy, wind energy, renewable energy projects. This is similar to the situation that was prevailing prior to Kyoto Protocol. Though USA did not ratify Kyoto Protocol, few industrialized states in USA, like California, passed its own climate change regulations. Okay, California created its own climate change registry. It's not as a country as the US, but California has one. Okay, they have their own mechanism, internal mechanism. California is one of the leading states, like Maharashtra in India, Tamil Nadu in India. California is one of the best performing states in USA. They have a say in US administration, good say in US administration. They have their own climate control policy. They have their own, like say, registry for allowance, monitoring, issuance, trading of offset mechanism, something like CERs. They have a mechanism internally in California. So India should create its own, what I say is India should create its own mechanism for emissions trading to control climate change in India. That mechanism should be a market-based mechanism, something like the CER mechanism, which was there in MCX and NCDX, similar to the European Climate Exchange carbon financial instruments that was there in Indian markets. And but for which we need to calculate what are the total number of industries which reduce emissions, what are the equivalent number of CERs, And what is the CRs required to meet the Paris agreement? What are the commitments given to the Paris agreement? What are the NDCs we are a commitment we are going to give for NDC? All those things has to be calculated. For which only I say that India can create its own model, or the one which is followed by, like say, for example, China has its own model, California has model, Europe has already a well-established model is there in Europe, which has to be created. I also wanted to copy that model, but we can create our own model, but we have expertise and other things are there. We have a very good market, very good number of industries, non-emitting industries in India, and also emitting industries in India. So at national level, India should maintain a registry for emission projects, and it should be approved by UNFCCC. India promotes a lot of solar energy products. Those solar energy products are also part of CER projects, which has to be audited by United Nations body. And for buying and selling in international markets, we can depend upon banks like Deutsche Bank, which is a very popular mediator in emission reduction instruments. For example, our Tamil Nadu windmill owners who get their CERs, they take the help of Deutsche Bank to convert, buy, sell CERs, particularly sell their CERs. So one participant has said the Kayathar windmills owners, they generate CERs, they use the help of Deutsche Bank to sell them in European climate exchanges. When you want a good broker in India, a good person from Indore, Mr. Manish Dabkara is there, who is also an internationally leading player in buying and selling emission reduction certificates. The company's name is Yenking International. Leading in India, leading international. His picture is also there. So the remedy lies essentially in the problem. You have to understand. By though you have understood what is the problem in the emission reduction markets. Market-based market mechanism. For that, we wanted to remedy. The remedy lies very much in the derivatives market. I am a proponent of the derivatives market. I am a believer of remedies through market-based mechanism. Because I am from the domain, I have full of confidence that derivatives market, futures market, spot market, efficient spot and futures market, efficient derivatives market for carbon instruments should be created in India, so that we have our own dedicated exchanges to deal with genuine players internally, and genuine foreign players will be allowed to trade in Indian markets. So carbon credits are the only way of getting ongoing income for a decent amount of time, but we really need the markets. As of now, we don't have the markets. So if resumed, what is the market? Example, the contracts traded in multi-commodity exchange, the contracts traded in like NCDX for that matter. If resumed, carbon trading will grow in the coming days amidst the burning issue of climate change. It's not only growing burning issue of in the going of climate change, but it will also play a major role in mitigating climate change. Okay, so the time is running out. As understood, I wanted to conclude, resuming carbon financial instruments in Indian markets will help businesses succeed in the new carbon constrained environment with advanced, low cost and financially guaranteed tools for emission reductions. I strongly believe that, but by this time you should also agree that, but would have understood that still there is a dilemma. There of anxiety, what will happen to the one point which is left unresolved, that the value and how to sell the CERs, pending CERs, and the CERs to be created. Consensus is expected in the next COP meeting, the Conference of Parties, which is COP26, which is going to be held in Glasgow, UK. So as you are waiting for the developments in what is going to happen in Glasgow, UK, me, Dr. Vel Murugan, I'm also waiting what's going to happen in December at Glasgow. Thank you so much for your patient listening. I guess I made some justice in making my presentation to make you understand the importance of carbon derivatives market in mitigating climate change. Thank you so much, dear participants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was very nice presentation and it was very useful for all of us and it was new for all of us. Participant, if any doubt, you can unmute and ask. Otherwise, or chat box also you can use. Thank you, sir.
Let emitting industries buy the CRs within India. And we will also engage into a, like say, treaties with developed nations. Now it is independent nations, sir. As per Paris Agreement, it is nations are independent. It is independent commitments. Independently, they can enter into MOUs. We can enter into MOU with other countries, like for example, richer countries. They could have those entities in developed nations. If they wanted, they can buy trade in Indian markets. Only thing we want to do is that we can, like foreign institutional investors are allowed in the stock markets. We can allow this.
No audio, sir.
The largest emitter in the world. We also emerging economy. We are trying for a 5 trillion economy and third largest economy in the world. When this is our like the economic targets, we need to have a very good market model to mitigate emission. That is my. So this is the slides which I haven't explained because for want of time, which I am proposing why there is a need for resuming exchanges in India.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyhow, whatever it is, we need to wait for till December COP26. I think India by this time, I don't know, COVID, it requires a lot of lobbying with developing nations, a strong developing nations, strong, not developed nations, strong developing nations lobbying is required for close to 5-6 months. Someone should, at ministry level, take this initiative to get a consensus among developing nations. At least what we can do is that at Glasgow, we can push for selling the existing CERs which is in our hand. That has a very good value as of now. Even if December it is agreed, like Indian entities will be able to sell in 2022, like good number of CERs in European climate exchanges. Chances are.
Okay.
That is my opinion.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, sir. And anyhow, tomorrow your presentation is there.
Yeah, morning.
I thought of calling you. I also have one more request. After your presentation today, tomorrow evening, I want you to be there in the validity session for your opinion for just 2-3 minutes of entire observation. Just for 2-3 minutes in the.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Any other question, clarification from the participant side?
Thank you, sir. It was a very informative session. We could see from the chat box that it was well explained and an interesting session. So on behalf of the entire team, I would like to thank and appreciate sir for sharing your valuable thoughts on climate change from commerce perspective. Sir, thank you so much. And dear participants, feedback form is already posted. Kindly fill it. And tomorrow we are moving on to the 10th day of faculty development program. Kindly join us by 10:50 a.m. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mohammed, you can stop recording. Talat, inform, call Mohammed and tell him to stop the recording.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.